Hey, welcome back to the Shared Universe Studios here on the Jersey Shore. It's the A Game. I'm Rob Acampora. I'm surrounded tonight. I called in for a little help, and I'll explain why when I introduce my guest. But right next to me is a gentleman who you may know from the Netflix series Tires. He lasted on an episode that got him killed, but a memorable part to say the least, because every time we go out, they go, "Oh my God, I recognize you from Tires."
There's not a golf round that we've played in the last 2 years where somebody hasn't, by the fourth hole, gone, "Don't I recognize you
from somewhere?"
Yeah,
exactly.
I know.
Bob Senkiewicz is here.
Hey, good evening to you.
Good evening to you.
Happy to be back.
Thank you. And here's the reason why he's back, because I bring in my guest from the NHL Network, and a man who is basically given his life to hockey. I mean, over nearly 40 years, and 30 of those, almost 30 of those between ESPN and the NHL Network. I mean, his resume is impressive. And in the midst of all the Olympic craziness, he decides he's going to come in with us.
Certainly not showing any intelligence.
No, I mean, that's another story, but let's bring him on. EJ Hradek from the NHL Network is here.
Yeah. Hey, you ask, and I said yes, so it's no big deal. I mean, there's no games going on right now. It's perfect.
This is true.
This is true.
They're asleep right now.
Yeah, exactly. This is the calm before the crazy, which we're going to get into. But for people who don't know EJ, I mean, if you follow hockey, you know his work from the NHL Network. How I have found out about him a little bit, I recognize him from television, but it turns out a friend of mine from college, Noreen Malone Hansen, goes, "Have you had AJ on your podcast?" I'm like, "No. What do you mean? I mean, I can hold it."
Yeah.
So, Noreen, if you're watching, thank you. Thank you so much.
I hope they still have that stick for me at the house. They kept a stick for me at the house years ago, but it might be gone by now. It's a long time now. So.
EJ, it's interesting. We actually have an interesting thing in common. One of them being you actually were part of the New York Post at one point, were you not?
For a short period of time, I was in. I think it was 1989. I got a job as an agate clerk there at the sports department, and that was a path to getting into sports writing. Really, at that time, I mean, like Michael Kay had done that, John Giannone. There were several others. Frank Isola, who has gone on to, I mean, all these guys have gone on to other, really terrific careers. And I got in that kind of, in that queue, so to speak. And it was, I believe it was January 89, somewhere in there. And I was so thrilled to get the job. And then 9 months later, I quit. And I didn't even have another job.
Well, I'm thrilled, I guess.
And it just goes to show you, though, like, when you're young, you make decisions sometimes, like, you don't realize that you hopefully have a long life ahead of you. And I just felt like, hey, I just see a lot of people in front of me, and there's all this infighting, and I just don't know if this is ever going to work out here. So I decided to leave. And Peter Vesey, who was the big basketball columnist at the Post and worked in TV, very nice. He took a liking to me for some reason, and he was like, "Well, life is a lot like basketball. You got to box out, Are you sure you want to do this?" And I was like, "Well, I think it's the right move for me." And in the end, it did work out. I ended up going down another path, and in the end, things have worked out. But yes, I was at the New York Post for like about 9 months, and it was, working at a newspaper, especially in that era, obviously a lot different than now. It was interesting.
Yeah, I think it's funny. It's about the same timeline. My dad was running the circulation department in Manhattan for the Post for many years, and right around the same time as EJ's leaving, my father was leaving, because right at that time, for people who don't know, Rupert Murdoch had sold the paper at that point to Andrew Calico, the real estate developer, because of the Fox network. So even if you stayed, there's no guarantee you would have stayed beyond that. So in a sense, knowing that timeline, I think wise beyond what you could have ever imagined, that you may have gotten out at the exact right time, because then all hell kind of broke loose, because there was changes going on at the paper at that point.
Yeah, there was a lot of things that went on subsequently. I would not have, that did not impact my decision, and that was kind of before I made that call. But that was right. That was in the days where, like, you couldn't own a TV station and a newspaper in the same market. But of course, now that you can do whatever you want. Now nothing matters anymore. But, so that's what it was. But yeah, I remember being at the Post down on, I guess, right on the South Street Seaport area there, and the diner that was over there, and interesting times.
Parking by the Brooklyn Bridge, right underneath there. It was Interesting time, to say the least. Hey, you have a unique perspective for what you do, because you obviously have done journalism. You've been in front of the camera. You even been a scout with the Dallas Stars for a few years. How did scouting help make you better at what you do now?
Well, it really just informed my knowledge of the game more. I got into scouting. I had been doing some media work. I was living in Dallas for 6 years. I was working for a magazine called Beckett Hockey Monthly, which was more of a collectibles magazine. I was young in my career looking for opportunities, and they couldn't get anybody who had a hockey background to come down to Dallas that had, like, more of a resume. I was a younger guy, and in the end, I ended up
new in Dallas at that time.
there wasn't even, the Dallas Stars were not even there.
Wow.
When I arrived, it was just kind of just kismet for me. I was there, and then the Dallas Stars arrived, so it allowed me other avenues and got to meet some of the management people there. That led to me asking about a scouting job, and they were crazy enough to say, yeah, sure, why not? And it worked out. I did it for a couple of years, but I went into it with the idea of, because you go into these, you go into an arena and you sit near the scouts, and it's a little different now than it was then, but they're like, a lot of these guys are former players or somebody's, brother that played. I mean, they all have like deep web of connections. And here I am, and just kind of, who is this young guy from Westchester County, New York, who never played at a high level anywhere? I played club college hockey. That was it. So I went into it with the idea is that I'm going to, I'm going to keep my head down. I'm going to watch the games. I'm going to file my reports, but I'm going to listen to these guys talk about hockey. And, I think it was really valuable for me. I just learned a lot of things, extra things about the game, things to look for, things I wouldn't necessarily have thought of on my own. And I thought it really informed me even more about a game that I was really passionate about, that I had played, as I said, as a club college, had coached at the club college level, but to hear and listen to these guys talk about players and teams and, the long, season and what to look for in certain situations, I think was just, it was an education that I couldn't have gotten anywhere else. I was really, really fortunate. And, it just reminded me that sometimes it's better to listen than to talk.
So then
I listened.
The question here then. You spent the few years there with Mike Modano, who has been widely acknowledged by many people as being the best American-born player in the game.
Yeah.
Do you see anybody today that's challenged that you would think would challenge that?
Well, I mean, he just, like Patrick Kane, just passed his record for points by an American-born player just recently, and Mike acknowledges Patrick as the best American-born player. So, but I mean, I think it's one of those questions that, there are a number. I don't know if there's a lot of wrong answers when you think about the guys that we think of: a Brian Leach, a Chris Chelios, Mike Modano. Nowadays with someone like Patrick Kane, and there are more guys, that are in the early stages of their career right now. So there's a lot of great ones. Certainly, Mike was just fantastic to watch. I mean, he was so unique. He was long and lanky, and everybody talks about that when he skated. I mean, just the flapping of the jersey in the breeze, it was unusual.
He was sneaky fast on the skates and would go by players in a blink of an eye. Absolutely.
Yeah. He's and the one thing about Mike being down in Dallas, I got to know him when the Stars got down there. He's a great player, but he is just a wonderful person, and always happy to run into him and to see him. And now he lives in Minnesota. He's got 5 children there. He is married to the daughter of Joe Micheletti, the former Rangers.
I did not know that.
Yeah, the former Rangers color analyst, and Joe was an NHL player himself. So, and Joe's daughter was like a pro golfer, I believe, and so there's a lot of pressure on those kids. I mean, they got some really good genes there. So we'll see what happens.
With St. Louis?
He played with St. Louis. He played in the WHA, I believe, as well. But Joe is another terrific, terrific person. One of my favorite people in the game.
Good stuff with EJ Hradek here on the A Game. With it being the Olympics, I got to dive into at least both sides of the equation, because Thursday night, big game for the U.S. women's team. It's the matchup everybody thought was going to happen, U.S. versus Canada. And I think there's a lot going on with this game, more than just the medal, EJ, because of the professional league that has happened. If I could get photo 5 up here right now, the PWHL getting more of, I would say, free publicity in this because the two teams basically have what would amount to an all-star team of the PWHL with both rosters. And when you look at what's going on, yeah, you can take that down. When you look at the matchups here and you look at where the league is going, how important will be viewership for this game? How important will it be that it'll be a competitive game? And how can this be a springboard for the league in year 3 to potentially go further, maybe get a major contract, kind of like the WNBA did as they were developing?
Well, I mean, certainly if it's a really good, entertaining, competitive game, that helps more than anything else, no matter who wins it, right? I mean, clearly there's more. The population is much bigger in the United States, so if Team USA were to win, that would probably benefit them more. I mean, but the bottom line is you want, these are two teams over the last 25 plus now years. I guess it's more than that, going back to 1998 when Team USA won that first gold medal at the Olympics in women's hockey. They've been the two teams. I mean, there have been, I think in 2006. The Swedes beat Team USA in the, I think it was the semifinal. And that was the only time that Team USA and Team Canada did not play in the gold medal game. And it will be that way again this year, as you mentioned. The difference is Team USA this year has been dynamic. I mean, they have only allowed one goal. I think they've outscored their opponents 31-1.
31-1. Yeah.
They beat Canada 5-0, which is unusual for this for Olympic competition.
The shots on goal in each game have been just ridiculously one-sided.
And like Team USA this year has embraced a little bit of a younger team. I think, being around rinks, as my son played youth hockey and, I'm around the rink all the time still. I still skate. And so I see all the young girls that have really moved to play hockey now. I mean, they've watched this over these, couple of decades. And, I think young girls see an opportunity to play maybe at a high level. And so Team USA this year has integrated a lot of younger players. There's more speed. There's more high-end skill than they've ever had before.
Agreed.
They do have a couple of, the remaining players from previous teams like a Hillary Knight or a Kendall
leading scorer
Schofield. Yeah, but like some of the younger players have really pushed the pace, and I think driven this team to the heights they've had this year. So all that said, a single elimination hockey game, anything can happen. Anything can happen. And so we'll see how it goes. But Team USA has played well, and I will not be surprised if they win.
Let's harken back here for a second then. Do you see any comparison between the women's hockey team, women's U.S. hockey team, and the way that the old Soviet teams were back in the age of the Soviet bloc?
Well, it's different in that, like, they were like, non-professional, right? I mean, they were
professionals, yes.
Yeah, right. So a little bit, a different world, different era. But I mean, this team in this tournament is dominating to that level.
Right.
So that's what I would say. When you outscore your opponents by 30 goals in a matter of a handful of games, and you don't give up a goal in 5 of those games, I mean, that's pretty significant. So they have been a dominant force. It will be an upset if they do not win because they have looked that good.
And they beat Canada 5-0 in the round robin too.
But that said, I mean, I will say this with the women's hockey program over these 30 years or whatever it's been. There's been years where they have won that preliminary game and then just have not played well when it mattered. So we'll see how it goes. We'll see how things play out. I mean, Thursday they'll drop the puck.
Right.
I think if Team USA can get off to a good start, gain the lead, that confidence will grow. And I think for Canada, because they play what they call the rivalry series here in the run-up to the Olympics, and Team USA did very well in the rivalry series. I think they might have won all those games as well. So we'll see where it goes, but it will be great for women's hockey. I know that the New York team in the WPHL is going to be playing at Madison Square Garden in early April. I think that's near a sellout right now.
Well, that's
It'll probably only be boosted by the fact that this is going on right now, and if Team USA were to win, there's a lot of players on those teams, Seattle and New York. So it's good for women's hockey, but women's hockey has definitely been on the rise over these last couple of decades. There's no question about it.
I've seen a huge, and I mean, and I watch a lot of this stuff. And I'm sure, as you do, a huge increase in the skill level of the American and Canadian players in the last, between the last couple of Olympics. And I have to imagine that the professional league plays a large part in their development and improvement of their game.
Yeah, I just think on the local level, skill development for all hockey players is kind of off the chart in the last 15 years, almost to a little bit of a detriment when you're actually playing the game, where sometimes the simpler things are better. But the skill development has been crazy, and certainly for the women's programs. And as I said, I mean, this group of younger American players are as skilled as any women's hockey players I've ever seen.
I got to bring out a point that you always brought to me when we talk about hockey, is that when it comes playoff time, usually the hot goaltender is the person that can really carry a team. And when you talk about Erin Frankel, who has stopped 67 to 68 shots in 4 games, clearly she's been the dominant goalie in the Olympic play so far. She's also the number 2 goaltender in the league. So you literally have one of the best professional goaltenders in the game. So it would be a shock if all of a sudden there'd be a letdown in her game, because the defense, I think, has been a bigger story than even the offense, as you said before, 31-1. And the way they've been playing and the speed of the game is the other thing that impresses me the most about the women's team. They just seem blazingly fast, and I love watching the game because I wasn't sure what to expect. I'm watching it more now than even the men's hockey. That's really the thing that's been impressive to me. And
the head coach there is Coach Rob Acampora, has been involved with men's programs and now coaching the women's program. And like I said, they have just played very well. They've come together as a team. They've had that time. It's not like the men's programs where these guys just come together at the tournament. Women have a little, because they play these rivalry series games. They're used to, I think it's just a little bit more continuity within their group. But they've taken off in these Olympics. There's no question about it. And if they do win, and if they do win in convincing fashion, it'll be interesting to see, what the response is here in the U.S. and how will it push that game to another level. We'll see. But the league is certainly on the upswing. I saw an ad for it they ran the other day during one of the Olympic coverage, and I thought it was a terrific ad. So they are definitely making inroads. And I think women's sports throughout the United States, I mean, you see how things have gone. I think the college basketball explosion a couple of years ago, I think it's been one of those things where a rising tide lifts all boats. And I think it's good to see that the women's hockey players are getting more of an opportunity to pursue their dreams beyond just amateur play.
And I'm happy to hear that the game at the Garden's almost sold out, because I know the area team hasn't sold as well as some of the other franchises in the league. So that's why I wanted to bring out that point, because if it is the springboard, that may actually help the franchise gain more fans into the stands. And I think it's going to be important. Without a major television contract, it is about what they're going to draw right now more than anything else. Very similar to, I think, the world of the CFL. When you talk about the Canadian Football League, it's not so much about the television coverage, it's about the fan base and what they get in the stands more than anything else.
Well, and realize that the women's league, the New York team, is actually still being carried on MSG networks.
Okay.
So they're getting local coverage, but they're not getting beyond that coverage.
Right, of course.
Yeah. Hey, it's a process in all these in all the things you're talking about with the television coverage and getting people to come to the games. Some of the places the teams have done very well. I think New York is a tricky market. I also think, if there was a middle range type of building, it would be more helpful. I mean, it's hard to put 18 to 20,000 people in a building for a women's hockey game consistently. But I think if there was a nice 10,000 seat building somewhere, I think that would probably be something that would make more sense for the team. But every market has its own challenges. They're trying to grow it here, and the fact that the Team USA is doing so well certainly won't hurt them.
EJ, one last question before we get to the men's game. Would it benefit the team then locally? Not that I'm going to say Nassau Coliseum, which happens to be available, and they haven't had hockey there in at least 5 years. I mean, I don't know the condition of Nassau at this point. I know it's gone through some changes. They cut down the seating. They've done the renovation. But in the grand scheme of it, we all want to be as close to the city as possible with a franchise. Does it benefit the team to potentially move out to Nassau at some point to try to gain more of a fan base?
Well, I mean, I think they would have to do the studies in terms of where their fans are. Like,
Right.
where are the fans coming to the games? Like, I know, for example, the Liberty, now they've had success, and basketball has kind of women's basketball has really grown dramatically,
Absolutely.
but they have done really well in Brooklyn, right? I mean, it seems like
Right.
they draw really good crowds there.
Yeah.
Are there enough hockey, like hockey fans, and in particular, like, women's hockey fans that would support it at Nassau Coliseum? I mean, they would have to do that kind of research. There certainly is a big population base out there, so that's one thing to consider. Maybe you try to play a couple of games in each of these buildings and try to market it as like,
Yeah.
they're the area team and they get to play a couple in each place, so it's convenient for those people in Jersey to go see them at the Prudential Center. It's convenient for those people on Long Island to see them at the Nassau Coliseum, and maybe you have a couple of games at Madison Square Garden to fill out your schedule. So these are all things I'm sure that the people there are thinking about. And it is a process. And I think one of the other things they have to consider too is that you have to bring these things along at the right pace. Because if you get ahead of yourself, that can be bad too. But I think they have made a lot of inroads in the last couple of years. Just the fact that they've been able to put this league together now where everybody's kind of on the same page is a huge plus, because that had not been the case over the last decade prior to this.
Well said. Well said. Go from the women to the men when it comes to the Olympic Games. U.S. and Canada, speaking of the two countries again, is potential collision course in the end. Even if the U.S. win the gold medal, and I post this to both of you because I look at it as a fan, even if we win the gold, and I think it would be a great accomplishment. It's still the shadow of 1980, because you even see on the network coverage from NBC, they bring out Eruzione and the crew. And it's great to see Mike at 72 looking as good as he is. And you can never, ever trump what happened there in 1980, because it was such a once in a lifetime, probably once in a century.
I'm going to cut you off for a second here.
Okay, go ahead.
It's not, because you're forgetting that the first time that the U.S. won was in 1960. And it took 20 years for people to remember what happened then. So do I think right now, because of movies like Miracle and the history that all those players then took to the NHL? I'm sorry, EJ, I'm answering a question for you.
That's okay. Listen,
all the history that those players brought with them into the NHL raised the level of awareness that everybody had for them.
Right.
But I don't think I think the biggest difference would be those players were all college guys.
And that's the point I was
going to Whereas now they're all pros. And so it takes a different, it brings a different feeling to it when you've got that. Now, back then we beat the pros who weren't pros. They were pros.
Beat the damn Russians who were the thing in 1980.
And I don't know, but that's my take on this, EJ. What do you?
I would say that like 1980 was so unique in that it was more than just hockey, right? I mean, the way where the world was at that moment, which always impacts the way we, kind of the prism that we look through for any of these events in our lifetime. I mean, there was the country was a little bit on the downside at that moment. You know, there was the hostage crisis, and there was.
And if you remember, I remember them talking about the fact that when the hostages eventually were freed, one of the big things they had in their videotape that they showed them on the plane as they were coming across was the U.S. victory in hockey.
Yeah, there you go. That's right. Yeah, and so and they were viewed as. I mean, you got to remember this: the Soviets at that time. They had just beaten the U.S. team prior to that at Madison Square Garden. I believe it was 10-3. It was a really bad beating. Yeah. And then they had played against NHL players and done very well. In some cases, won games and against top like NHL Team Canada type teams. And so, the world was different at that time. I think now, I mean, there'd be a lot of excitement to win. I think for sure. I just don't think anything necessarily would be like 1980. I mean, I think that was so unique. Although, now the rivalry with Canada and, the geopolitical things that are going on between the two countries, which I really never anticipated seeing that in my lifetime. But, you just don't know, how it's going to play out in the bigger picture of things. But these are the two best teams in this tournament, and if they can get to that gold medal game on Sunday, it would make for one hell of a game, and the team that wins will be pretty damn happy.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, next step is Sweden, I think, in the quarterfinals for the Americans.
Correct. Yeah.
So when we get out of it, you'll get back to your normal routine with the NHL. I think the interesting thing is, and then we'll get into random shots, we're not probably going to get the three-peat from Florida, obviously. But it also brings to mind the idea of a dynasty in hockey. That would have been probably the story if Florida were in a position, because we've seen the two. We've seen the Penguins win 2 in a row. We've seen the Tampa Bay Lightning win 2 in a row in the last 20 or 30 years. When you talk about dynasties, we can go all the way back to the Canadiens run when they won 15 cups in 21 years. You can talk about the Islanders 4 straight. You can talk about the Edmonton Oilers run with 5 and 7 years. I mean, is it going to be almost impossible the way hockey is now to have a run? Because we're seeing it with Florida, that trying to get the third one, or even going back to when Tampa tried to get the third one, or when the Penguins tried to get the third one, it became more difficult.
Yeah, it'll be really incredibly difficult. I mean, the Islanders team that won 19 consecutive playoff series, which I believe is a record for North American sports franchises, is, something, we talk about records that may never be broken. I would say that's high on the list. But, I will say that with the salary cap going up now, and again, these things can change. Nobody foresaw a pandemic, right? We don't know what the future is going to hold in terms of the economy and different things. But the bottom line is, if the cap continues to go up, it will allow for teams to keep their players.
Right.
And that's what the Islanders team in the 70s, or in the 80s, the Canadiens teams in the 70s and prior to that, they were able to keep their players on the team for a long stretch of time where they could keep winning. The Florida Panthers came back this year with all their players pretty much intact. They only, from their roster that won the cup of the guys who were on the ice, only the defenseman Nate Schmidt and their backup goalie were not on this team to start the season. The problem for the Panthers was that they got a couple of really significant injuries in training camp. I mean, their number one center, Alexei Barkov, got hurt, or Alexander Barkov got hurt, and he's out for the season. There's some thought he could be back late in the season or in the playoffs, but that's damaging. Matthew Tkachuk was out for the first 3 months of the season. They've had a number of different injuries. Other teams have played very well this year. It's putting them in a tough spot. So, I think if the cap continues to go up and teams that get good are able to continue to hang on to their players, it might be more likely that we would see a team that could win 3 in a row, but it's certainly not easy because of the way the structure of the league and how many games are played on a year-to-year basis, and the fact that guys do get hurt playing this game all the time, unfortunately. So I think it'll be more difficult, but you got to give the Panthers credit. They were in the final. They've been in the final now 3 straight years, and they won the last 2. And if they hadn't suffered the injuries they had suffered, they might have been in position to win again.
Right. So you talk about teams with the salary caps going up. How does the deferred contract money issue fall into play with how teams keep themselves intact?
Well, that's going to be a question for the league and for the Players Association, because I know that there was some of those contracts, and then I think with a new or an extension of the CBA agreement, they've moved away from that. So I know in baseball it's a thing. I'm not sure.
DiPietro and Kovalchuk and stuff like that.
Those were like those long. And they, teams try to circumvent all the time. I mean, the cap was much smaller then. I mean, when we came into a salary cap era, I believe the high end of the cap that first year was like $39 or $40 million.
Yeah, that's what I was
It's more than double that now. I mean, it's over $100 million for the high end of the salary cap. And there were teams that would look to circumvent by signing guys to 16-year contracts, 17-year contracts.
Right.
So then the league went in with the PA, and they got that down to 8. Now it's down to 7. So, you can't sign a guy. I think it's more than 7 if he's on your team, and then it's a year less if he's not on your team. So they've kind of whittled away at that, and I think that's going to be an ongoing kind of discussion with the Players Association and the league, but because they are looking to try to eliminate teams circumventing the salary cap. So, that's a continuing battle. But at the end of the day, if you can draft and develop players and you get them on your team, I mean, that's why it's hard when teams fall. Like Buffalo has missed the playoffs for 15 years. Now that's a kind of extreme example. Yeah. But the bottom line is when teams get good in this league, they usually stay good for a while
Mhm.
because they have the high-end players. You think of Colorado with McKinnon and McCarr and some of the other guys they got there. They've been a really good team now in the league for the last 8 or 9 years. They aren't going anywhere. So for other teams to get better in the West, teams like Colorado have to fall out. So that's
Mhm.
the challenge moving forward. And for the teams that are looking to get in, not easy.
EJ, let me throw one more thing at you as far as going forward, because you hear about other sports. You hear about Major League Baseball kicking the idea maybe by 2030 we could have expansion. The NFL has kicked around the idea about maybe putting a team in London in the future.
Yeah.
I continue to think the NHL getting stronger and with its Canadian base, that maybe this becomes the first sport that dangles 34 to 36 teams and takes the next step where it maybe becomes two American team franchises expansion and two Canadian team franchise expansions. What do you think the chances are of that happening, say, in the next 5 years?
Well, I think we're at 32. I think for me, the major concern is just the delusion of talent, right? Because and we're lucky hockey's kind of a worldwide game. So we get so many players from Scandinavia and Europe and Russia and Canada, obviously in the United States, it's growing. But, still that's a lot of players in a league where it's 20 players on a roster and, then you have filling minor league teams. It's a lot of players. And so I'm always concerned about that. But we're at 32. It's an even number. It works for everybody. But leagues, players, Players Association, it's financially beneficial to have more teams if you can have them. And there's more people that are interested in teams. I mean, we've heard of another group in Atlanta. Now, Atlanta has failed twice.
That's going to be my question. Why?
They're
Atlanta's
0 for 2. Wait a minute.
They failed twice. Why doesn't it work in Atlanta?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, Atlanta's always been kind of a strange sports town, but the idea is to maybe build the arena in a place where there are more, again, like I said earlier about doing the studies. Where are your fans? Like in Arizona, for example, like if they would have built the original rink there in Scottsdale, there would still be a team in Arizona. The Coyotes would still be there because there are a lot of hockey fans there. But when they built the team in Glendale and it was an hour drive into the sun on a Monday night to see Ottawa, they were having a hard time selling that. In that particular market. So, I think in Atlanta, listen, people who do these things, they have a lot of money.
Yeah.
They're not looking to lose the money. They think they could make it work. I would wonder if it could, because it has failed twice, but I'm sure they've done studies and research that tells them it could work. I think it could work in Arizona, for example. I think they just have to be in the right place. There's a place, like Houston is a huge market. Could hockey work there?
That is the biggest market that the NHL doesn't have is Houston. I want to ask you right away, EJ. We haven't seen Houston since the WHA with the Arrows. So, I mean, why is Houston sort of the whole of sitting there going, there hasn't been professional hockey there in decades, and why haven't they tried it? Is it just one of those things where they look at it and go, okay, Dallas took a while. It's going to take patience, I would think, to develop the team. Like you said, working with the Dallas Stars, you understood the patience factor of what was going on back then. Are teams less patient when they're coming into these situations?
Well, I think that to now, with the NHL's expansion rules as they are, the teams have a much better chance to be successful. I mean, we saw what happened with Vegas, where
still the only expansion team to ever make it to in any sport to make a final. It's amazing.
Yeah, so I mean, that the expansion rules for the NHL now, if indeed they were to have it again, I'm sure they have the same rules. It allows those teams to have a better chance to field a competitive team.
Right.
And so, that's a thing that hurt Atlanta in their forays into the NHL. And it hurt other teams as well, because when you don't win for 7, 8, 9, 10 years, I mean,
people give up on you.
You just don't. You can't create a fan base. There's nothing exciting. You're just losing, year after year after year. So, I think the change to that has been big for the league in terms of it's more, people are more interested now in NHL expansion franchises because, hey, we can be competitive relatively quickly, because even though we're paying a lot of money to get this franchise, the league is willing to give us an opportunity to draft and get players from other franchises that can help us be more competitive out of the gate. So, that is part of it. I do think expansion is in the future. As for Houston, I think the ownership of the basketball team has not been real positive towards having hockey there, and I think those are things that could impact when a team goes somewhere.
Having a
So
building is a big issue.
yeah, so there's I do think there's a lot of interest in different cities. We'll see how it plays out. As for further Canadian expansion, I think the biggest problem there is this league has gotten so big now in terms of the finances. I just think it's really difficult. And they're in the big Canadian markets,
Right. I
but
mean, I was about to
people have
say,
talked about Quebec City, like Quebec City. I don't think
yeah.
it could support an NHL team right now. There's just not enough money there.
Has the dollar issue between the U.S. dollar and the Canadian dollar, has that become less of an issue these days than it used to be?
Well, it's an issue again because the Canadian dollar is struggling now in this era. So, it's problematic for teams that have to pay in US dollars the salaries and take in Canadian dollars from fans and and all the things they sell and they do in Canada. So it's not as big a problem as it was maybe in the late 90s when it was a really big issue. But it's certainly something that's problematic for those teams because luckily the ownership in all those places, from my understanding, is pretty strong. And that's helpful. Like for in Winnipeg, for example, one of the richest men in the world is the reason why they have a team there.
Yeah.
So, Thompson has been, he has been more of a philanthropist than anything else in supporting that team in Winnipeg because their building only, I think, holds no more than 15,000 people. So, and what can you charge in those areas as well for tickets? So these are all things to consider. So I think they're kind of maxed out in Canada. That's just my opinion.
Yeah.
I think in the United States, there's a couple of markets. And, to your original question about, who knows? Hockey is an international game. I'm not smart enough to know exactly how it would work, but maybe there would be teams in other places at some point in time. We'll see.
Yeah, definitely. EJ Hradek here on the A Game. Random shots time. This is where we just kind of go all over the map as far as our questions go. Some of them will be serious. Some of them will be, I think I can set the tone real quick. If we can get photo number 4 up, because I want to bring this up. By the way, it's a great photo, but you're sitting with 2 Mets fans, by the way.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for you guys.
So are we right now.
Yeah, really.
Yeah. Well, listen, the Mets should be thrilled. They got the one of the wealthiest guys in the world owns the team. He just buys and trades for whoever he wants. It's like, like I used to hear about it when Steinbrenner, George owned the team. That was always the thing. Now the shoes are on the other feet because Hal Steinbrenner is very, cost conscious these days. And the guy, Steve Cohen, who runs the Mets, seems to be willing to spend a lot of money. So we'll see how that plays out.
The LA Dodgers. Come on.
There you go. That's right. And the Dodgers spend more than everybody. So it's worked out well.
Before I get to your questions, and I'm kind of going to roll back because we were bringing out a point about the deferred contract. EJ, because the Dodgers have done so many of these deferred contracts, there's just 5 guys on the roster. It's not just Shohei Ohtani.
Yeah.
So would the NHL kind of wait a little bit and see how Major League Baseball, because this is going to be an issue that's going to come up in the next year, how they will handle it?
Yeah, well, they have had a couple in hockey, and I don't think they like it so much, and I think they've put limits on it. I don't have the CBA stuff in front of me, so it's hard to be 100% certain. I know a couple of teams did contracts like that, and I don't think the league was really eager to go down that path, and so they've put some limits on it as far as I know. Now, I could be wrong on that because, again, I'm not something I've been thinking about during the Olympic break and over the last little bit. But I do know that, that Carolina, I think in particular, was one team that had done a couple of deals like that. And, it is something on the mind of the business people at the league. There's no question about it.
And we're already seeing the backlash that everybody's complaining about. Yeah, when you got, and it's not just small, we're talking significant ones. And we even saw recently Verlander's contract is like $9 million of it is deferred. That's how the Tigers, they were able to get him back. So again, maybe this is the new world we're living in, but I get the feeling that may change in the next year. What do you got for me on random shots for EJ?
Right. So in honor of the Olympics happening right now,
there you go.
Better call. Do you believe in miracles or Matto? Oh my God.
Well, it's pretty obvious it is. You believe in miracles.
Okay.
Although it was kind of a miracle that the Rangers ever won the Stanley Cup. They were in such a good run there for many, many years with nothing.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
They ended up winning in '94. That was an amazing run for Ranger fans for sure.
It really was.
But I think the Al Michaels call, I mean, now that I get to, I do more games. Like this stage of my career, I've gotten to do a lot of games now, and I've done like the last 4 or 5, 6 Stanley Cup final series. I do them for the NHL International broadcast, so they get listened and heard over there. But like you do start thinking about as series unfold, like how am I going to close this out?
Mm-hmm.
And so for Al Michaels, and I've interviewed Al Michaels in the past. I don't know if that's something that just came to his mind or was something that he had thought about, but in the end, it was pretty picture perfect, right? That call by Al Michaels. So it's hard to beat that, although Mateau was a pretty good call as well.
I still want to know where Mount Vancouver is, but that's a whole different issue.
Baby. You have to add in baby.
Baby. That's true. Well, yeah, that's true.
Yeah, that's right.
The next one is toe or the cat. And for those of you who are not hockey fans, Toe Blake
and Emil Francis. The cat. I'm gonna have to go with the cat because my first name is Emil, and when I was a young person, I mean that was the thing, right? Emil Francis. That was
there you go.
Closest to me, so I got to go with the cat. Former goaltender and a longtime NHL coach and executive.
There you go. All right, now a serious one for me. All right.
All right.
In this league, 20 years ago, 25 years ago, they moved to the overtime rules where they're giving that extra point away for the overtime winner.
Yeah.
When will they, and why not, go to a 3-point game?
They won't until the commissioner moves on to something else in life and they bring somebody else in, because the commissioner, Gary Bettman, is I've had this conversation with him a number of times. Other journalists have had it with him a number of times.
Right.
And like he is very comfortable and there's no appetite for change at the league level. So that tells me that if it ever happens, it will not happen under this current administration. So I don't like the fact personally that games are not all of equal value.
That's why I asked the question too.
Yeah, I mean, if its game is going to be worth 3 points, then okay, 3 points for the regulation win, 2 points for the overtime win, 1 point for the overtime loss, no points for the regular. I mean, that makes sense to me. If you're just going to embrace the shootout, and it is part of the game now, whether people like it or not,
correct,
you could just go to wins and losses and make it much easier for fans. Instead of trying to, extra point and, parse the points. I mean, I know it's hockey. It's what we have done over many years. But if you wanted to make it really easy for fans, you could just say you either won or you lost.
I think it's funny you brought that up because I was about to say, I'm not a fan of the shootout. I became a big fan of the 3-on-3. I love that. I've loved watching it. 5 minutes to me is not enough, but is it realistic that at some point they extended to a 10-minute overtime with the 3-on-3?
They've done that, if I'm not mistaken, and the players have continually shot that down.
Yeah, they've talked about it, but I think the league it's just a matter of the ice surface because, you don't do the ice after regulation. You're not going to Zamboni the ice again. They do come out and they clear the ice. They do a scrape, but it's not the same thing. And also these players are playing 82 and they're going to raise the schedule to 84 games. Right. And there's so many games. I mean, 35% of the games go to overtime, maybe more than that this year. It's be pretty taxing. I know for us fans who are there, I'd like to see it go on until somebody scores. I'm with you 100%. But the reality is the reality. I don't think it's feasible.
Yeah. Okay. I didn't even think of that. But I mean, because you watch this idea as a fan and you go, I would take more than 5 minutes. But I mean, because
you know what? I'm going to take the other side of that.
Okay.
Are you ready? Because having watched the All-Star games when they play that as a 3-on-3, running 10 minutes of that, 20 minutes of 3-on-3 gets a little tedious because they've learned the right way to play 3-on-3 now. And it's all about puck possession and getting position for a proper shot. And it becomes this very chess-like maneuver of trying to not put the puck in a place where you can lose it and turn it over, where the other team now has an advantage. And that becomes, I mean, while it can be exciting if they're playing wide open and going, but if they're not, it gets, that's my take on it.
Right. But AJ, I'll defer to you on this because you're somebody in the media, somebody who's done the coverages. When you see it on television, as a fan, when I watch this, it's riveting. It is definitely one of the most exciting things when you go into overtime. Oh, here we go, 3-on-3. And it just, it explodes onto the television. And we know one of the hardest things has been once you've gone to a live hockey game, you're spoiled because it just never matches up. So when you have this thing that does, I think, just works a little better on television. I mean,
well,
I understand
it's clearer to see for sure. And I would say I agree with the other point is that like there are times when these games get chess-like because the teams do battle for possession sometimes. But there's a lot of the games too where there is just freewheeling.
Yes.
And they go back and forth. So I mean, it just doesn't always work out exactly as we want all the time. A lot of times it depends the teams that are playing and the situation that they're in the standings. But for me, it is very entertaining. I think the advances in television, certainly in my lifetime, I mean, I watched the coverage of the Olympics. I know I'm part of the World Junior coverage for the NHL Network, and that's in concert with TSN in Canada, and they blow that out. They have 1 million cameras up there and all these slow-mo cameras. Hockey on TV these days can be the super slow motion replays of pucks tumbling and guys on their edge and falling over and hits and saves.
We don't need the puck tracks anymore.
Yeah, I mean it's really incredible. Now, unfortunately, that's it's not on every broadcast because you have to have the willingness to spend money to have those kind of cameras in the building, and they do that for the Olympics and they do that for a number of the big events. But it's incredible, and it's certainly light years better than it was. But going to a game is still pretty cool.
Amen.
I'm going to go off my board here for my next question.
Good.
How distracting do you find the active boards during a broadcast of a game?
It's so funny. There are so many people that are bothered by that, and they're really bothered by it. And I got to tell you, I couldn't care less. I literally could not care less. I mean, I watch the game. I'm watching the game for different things. Like, I would say 99 out of 100 times I'm not even. Like, every once in a while, something weird happens with it and it catches my eye. Or if they don't have the signal right and guys get caught up.
Right.
I literally, it's one of those things. Life is too short.
Yeah,
I am not going to get that concerned about it. I mean, I do think it's funny because when I was growing up, the boards were white.
Yeah.
They were pristine.
Yeah.
That was it. And they would always say, well, in Europe, they sell ads on the jerseys.
On the jerseys, on the boards.
That'll never happen here.
Oh, no.
Never.
Now there's just the decals on the helmets. And
now there's everything. And that's just the way the evolution of it has been. But I will tell you, whenever I hear people complaining about that, I just laugh because I'm like, don't you have something else to worry about? Just watch the game.
You brought up stuff, and it made me think of that because I know friends of mine who complain incessantly about that. And I'm like, guys, it's just a special effect. It's not a big deal.
Yeah, it's not. Listen, it is what it is. Can you change it? Like, you're going to be mad? You're going to just go, I hate this.
It's like it's watching, figuring out what you're buying and then putting a special ad just for you.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, for better or worse, this is where we're at, right? I mean, literally, people know, wherever you are at any given point in time now. I mean, the world is crazy now.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, to me, I couldn't care any less. Just want to see the game.
I'm going to give you, I got one or two more here. All right, you ready? All right. This is a relatively serious one because this is something that's always bothered me about the game.
Okay.
Should goaltenders be fair play for a hit? Because you have these goaltenders who will play the puck. I mean, they changed to the trapezoid behind the goal now.
Yeah, which I don't like.
Which I don't like either.
Yeah.
But you've got these goaltenders who can control the play by stopping the puck back there and basically ruining a forecheck.
Yeah.
Should they be, if they're playing the puck, should they be fair game?
Well, I would say that, every situation is a little bit different. I don't think you could run the goalie. I mean, because just, how it is. I mean, you guys have watched hockey games. You know what that results after that is. We have, stuff I like. A Donnybrook. Another Donnybrook. Yeah. But, I don't, and I just think the goalie is a really, really important piece of your team.
Mm-hmm.
So unless the goaltender is out there looking for contact, I would say that, and the league has done a job. The league is protecting the goaltenders. So, if people are going out of the way, so I would say no. I don't want it to be fair game. But on the other side, if they're out there looking for contact, looking to initiate, well, then hey, you get what you pay for. So then that's on you.
Where I'm at with that too. Is like if they're out there actually going to play the puck and become an active member of the offense and moving the puck. Why are they not able?
Well, I think if they go out and play it and then just move the puck and aren't trying to screen a guy or aren't trying to bang into a guy and aren't trying to play physical, I think it's up to the players to, and listen, guys do run into them. That's the way it goes sometimes. And when that happens, we have a Donnybrook, which I personally like a good Donnybrook. So I grew up on the Donnybrook.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and speaking of Donnybrooks, it brings up one of my last questions. And I was thinking about this when it comes to Hollywood, when it comes to Donnybrooks. I gotta ask them on a scale of 1 to 10, rate Slapshot.
Oh, Slapshot is I mean, it's a 12.
There we go. Yes.
How can you go?
I mean, listen, it's
Paul Newman.
It stood the test of time.
It really
hasn't it? I mean, like you could put it on tomorrow. Like I saw it was on the other day, and I have to stop and watch a few minutes. And,
Amen.
It's just it's one of those. I mean, it's 45 years old for crying out, more than that.
Yeah.
And yet it still is very watchable. I mean, obviously Paul Newman was one of the great actors, and my colleague now at NHL Network, the longtime coach Bruce Boudreau, he was one of the minor leaguers playing there, and as one of the extras, and he has a lot of good stories about that. And I mean that's one of those, in terms of sports movies, that's high on the list.
And the reason I bring this up is because the movie Goon was on again, and I've seen it. It's cute, but it's always been like the minute I stopped watching, I'm like, yeah, but it's not Slash. It's not Slapshot. Immediately you just go, it's not Slapshot. It's cute. It's not Slapshot.
There's nobody stripping in the ice and skating around.
But I will say this. I think we've seen Slapshot 2 and Slapshot 3, and they were not good.
No. They didn't hold up as well as even as the Mighty Ducks.
No, that's true. I agree. And Youngblood. There's another classic.
There's another one.
Rob Lowe.
And they say there's no good sports movies. Come on.
Yeah, there we go.
There we go.
You got one more?
All right, I'll go one that will infuriate any hockey fan who's a New York area person.
I'm going to kill you. I'm going to kill you. Go ahead.
Chris Drury or John Davidson?
I'm leaving. You already know what I'm voting for. So if EJ goes one way, I may be leaving.
You know what? You can claim the fifth on that if you really want to.
No, I mean, listen, Chris Drury's had struggles. There's no question about it. I mean, he's had some struggles here, and listen, the owner is fully in his camp.
Yes.
Yeah.
So until the owner changes his mind, Chris Drury is running the show there. So we'll see how it goes. Maybe he can get it turned around. In fairness, they did go to the conference finals 2 of the last 4 years.
Yeah, they have.
I do think that they are on a path now that is it's going to take a lot of work and a lot of hard decisions moving forward.
EJ, forgive me, is it fair to say then that the Rangers really over the last 2 years have been one of the bigger disappointments in the NHL? When you reach you're one series away from the Stanley Cup, and suddenly you're going to go 2 years in a row without going to the playoffs. I mean, for God's sake.
Yeah, there's no question about it. I mean, there were disappointment last year for sure. It kind of fell apart at the seams. There was a lot of, and this is where you get to Chris Drury. I mean, handling some of the decision making in the manner that he did, I think it just kind of tore the team apart in a lot of ways. I mean, I'm not in that room day to day to tell you, what those guys are saying, but you could see in the body language, you can hear from the players that were traded, some of the things that were said. People weren't happy. That's the bottom line. And so, they were a disappointment last year, and they were a disappointment again this year.
I'm going to take you back to one player personnel choice that I thought, as a Ranger fan, where things really were pointed in the wrong direction. And that was when Drury made the decision to let Pavel Buchnevich go and kept Filipino, who was more injury prone. And Buchnevich was a developing player. That's where I thought things started, were going in the wrong direction from my perspective.
Well, I mean, that was a deal that did not work out for them. But again, in that stretch, after they traded him, they did go to the conference final. I mean, so, but that was a decision they made. They felt like, again, the cap issues in the, leading up to the pandemic, and then in the pandemic, decisions you made prior, you thought you would have more room, and then you didn't. And that kind of changed the dynamic for a number of teams. But the bottom line is, I mean, I would say this: the Rangers lost to Tampa in the conference finals. They lost to Florida in the conference finals.
Yeah.
Both those teams, in my view, were better than the Rangers. Now, they had an opportunity to win both those series. I believe they were ahead 2-0 against Tampa before losing the next 4.
Yeah, and if I remember correctly, they had a lot of injuries in the series against Tampa that became to light after the series was done.
Yeah, but I mean, that's what happens with teams. I mean, after all this, even the teams that win the cup, you find out later. I mean, Matthew Tkachuk ended up being out for 6 months. So I mean, these are things that happen to guys. But you know, like they had an opportunity against Florida. They were up 2-1 in overtime in game 4. And inexplicably, Peter Laviolette had some guys on the ice early in that overtime, which I didn't really understand. And Blake Wheeler ended up out there, and Zibanejad had made a bad play. The bottom line is things happen. They lost that game on a power play goal. They ended up losing the series. They got close. They weren't good enough to beat those teams. They weren't good enough to win the Stanley Cup in those years. And then subsequently, some of the decisions they made hurt them, and some of the players, you know, started to show some signs of wear and tear or age and didn't perform as well. And so here we are.
Yeah.
Amen.
They fell apart at mid-season last year, and they've been on an upward slide since then. And they've got to figure out which end of the world is up.
Yeah, no question. I mean, fortunately, they have a great goalie in Igor Shesterkin when he's healthy.
Yes.
But that presents another problem, because when you have that kind of piece, you have to decide if you're really, you know, you want to be in when you have a goalie of that ilk. And if you're not going to be, then you have to consider some other decisions that are not really too thrilling to think about.
That is very true.
Yeah. As we're wrapping up, EJ, and to go out on a better note than we're talking about Rangers.
A happy note.
Sorry about that. No, I did say beforehand that I was a Ranger fan.
Yeah, you did. That's right. You were full disclosure.
Yes.
Full disclosure.
Exactly.
Yes.
But being that we're on the Jersey Shore, I've been doing radio on the Jersey Shore for a very long time.
Yeah.
EJ, you have a connection to the Jersey Shore at one point, do you not?
Well, I live here.
There you go.
Yeah, I live in Manahawkin, New Jersey, not far from Long Beach Island.
See, I've
been here for 22 years now.
I didn't realize it was that long. Oh, wow.
Yeah. And like when I first got here, I was working for ESPN, and I had a different schedule, and then eventually moved to the NHL Network. And I've spent a lot of time on the Garden State Parkway. I can tell you that. I can tell you that. If you want to know where trees are located on the Garden State Parkway, or where certain nooks and crannies, I'm your guy.
Right.
I can help you with that.
And he will not tell you what time he's going to chicken or the egg. That's all I'm going to say.
That's right. Hard to get in there. I can tell you. Hard to get. They got that new one that's over like off Route 70 or something like that. That's I got to get over to that one.
Yeah, I think you're going to have to, just so you can do some.
Just so I can. Yeah, exactly. That's crowded too.
Yeah. EJ, thank you so much for the time. We had a blast.
Thank you. It's my pleasure, guys, and enjoy the rest of the Olympics and the rest of the hockey season.
Absolutely. Don't forget to catch him on the NHL Network and during NHL Now when he's doing his regular work and the NHL season gets back going after he's done with his assignments on the Olympics. Bob, we will look for you on the YouTube channel for...
the show's called Perfect Sundays. I'm hoping that gets released sometime in the next month or two.
We'll look forward to that. Until the next time I'm back on here, which should be in about 2 weeks. That's a wrap for the A-Game this week. Don't forget to become a subscriber on my YouTube channel. It won't cost you anything. And this, I think, becomes episode 134 now in the books. Thank you so much for being here. Until next time, take care. Well done. You can kill it.
Kill it.